What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of Pending Final. Today, we are going to take it way back. We are going to do the history of visual effects. That is right. We are going to cover over 100 years of visual effects in an hour. But thank you for everyone who's reached out to us. I know we kind of had a week between an episode, but as you guys know, me and Helen are actually working in the visual effect industry, and our shows got a bit crazy. But we are back with a passion, and we're going to kick things off. Helen is going to take us all the way up to the year 2000. And then I will bring in with some the more modern revolutions to visual effects. So, handing it over to Helen.
Yeah, so this is something that I totally nerd out over, and I love it very, very much. So, Shannon, please feel free to edit out any rambling that I go on. But I know a lot of people consider Georges Méliès the person who did the very first visual effects movie, and that is true. But there was I guess you can call it a short, in 1895 called "The Execution of Mary Queen of Scots," and for this, the Mary Queen of Scots, she goes up to the chopping block, she puts her head down, and she gets her head chopped off. And then the executioner lifts her head up and is like, look, I've got the lady's head. And that was done by, they got the actress in, she laid her head down, then they stopped filming. They had a mannequin that they replaced her with, and then they started filming again, and he chopped off the mannequin's head and took it off, and then there you go. That's the first ever special effect or illusion that was ever created.
And it's funny, that technique is actually still used today. I think the amount of times I've used that in, my own short films.
Yeah, it's one of the easiest ways to do things.
And it's funny, they didn't actually do it very well, but I just watched the 40th anniversary of... No. I actually watched the 40th anniversary of Alien the other day, and they do the same thing where they replace, Ash with all of a sudden this mannequin to then him, and yeah, it could have been fixed in an edit, but yeah, it kind of a person kind of walked in front of it, and we all kind of giggled in the cinema. So even in I say modern, but in modern day cinema, even the technique, if you don't get it quite right, ugh. So... Yes. But no, that's what I love about that first one is we still use that technique today. You just lock the camera off, and if you kind of make sure people don't move, it's great.
After that, we had a ridiculously inspiring person, Georges Méliès. He was an illusionist, first of all, so he would do actual magic on stage, and he sort of found that you could do even more impressive things if you're doing them on film. So he did a lot of short pieces and incorporated those into his stage performances, but his sort of the amazing one that everyone talks about is the trip to the moon. And he built enormous sets, and he used forced perspective, and also he used everything that was available to him that was non-digital that he could possibly use. He had sheets of glass that had things painted on them so that he could show environments.
He almost was doing the first digital matte painting then, with the glass and things.
Almost, yeah. But yeah, I guess you could call it that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a bit different because it was on the glass. Was it on the glass in front of the camera?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's sort of similar idea. But,
yeah, so he was masking things out, and he had, as you would on a stage play, he had all these mechanically operated pieces of scenery, and obviously by the magic of film is you can't see all the pulleys and you can't see people moving things, so it appears that this rocket is going to the moon. But he also... for Trip to the Moon, he also had colour in his film, which was hand done. I believe it was an almost entirely female workforce, and they would literally colour by hand with a paintbrush onto the celluloid.
Oh, wow.
It was very, very small amount, and obviously it wasn't perfect. But I think there was quite a lot of copies of this film made with the coloured portions.
I confess, when I watched it in my like film 101 class or whatever, we must have not had the colored version. That or I don't remember, but because this is the one where the rocket goes into the eye.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, which is funny. It still sneaks into commercials in modern day. Like I think I saw a clip of it very recently.
Yes.
And again, as you guys listeners have realized, we've mentioned the VES Awards, the Visual Effects Society, and actually the trophy for the Visual Effects Society is that shot.
Yes, it's if you've ever you would have seen it around. I've seen people with it as tattoos. Like you said, the award, the trophy itself is a homage to this movie. But
did you know that trophy lights up?
It does?
It lights up, yeah. It does. When we won for Jungle Book, one of the supervisors brought it in, and yeah, it lights up at the base.
Oh my god. So another way that people might have seen this sort of brought up was there was a film in 2011 called Hugo. It was by Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
I think it won a visual effects Oscar.
Did it?
Actually, I'm going to check that right now.
You keep chatting. I'll check.
Yes. So it won Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Visual Effects. Wow. It is not, in my opinion, I do not think this is a good movie. This is one of the first movies I actually went, I'm actually tempted to walk out of this movie.
Oh, wow.
Because it was both boring and not, to me, it did not look well put together. And I'm not sure how it got these awards. Hot take. Hugo's a bad film.
Politics.
Yeah. But yeah, so this movie is about a kid who lives in a train station for whatever reason, and he ends up encountering Georges Méliès, and it's such a strange story, and it's sort of, you see the iconic trip to the moon, what's it called, iconography, and it's all very strange.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I remember, because I was working at a film school when it came out, that everyone was going on about it, and because I was like the visual effects student and things, like everyone was like, oh yeah, you're gonna really like this, blah blah blah, and I never watched it. I felt bad. We even had like the screeners, the VES screeners, because one of our tutors was in the Visual Effects Society, and I just gave it a pass. I'm kind of kicking myself now, but yeah, okay. Well, maybe I'm not kicking myself now, because if it's crap, then
yeah,
maybe not.
Not bad.
Cool. So what's up next?
The next thing that usually comes up in a timeline of like visual effects and sort of the history of it is the Great Train Robbery.
Yes.
Which has this urban legend about how people thought that the train was coming towards them and they all ran screaming from the theatre, which never actually happened. And
did it not?
film lecturers apparently keep telling people that it did happen,
Yes.
but
I got told
accounts,
at least 4 times.
Yeah, there are accounts of people who were there who say that never happened. So it's I think it's one of those things where people try and glamorize just how impressive the visual effects were, and they absolutely were, because it was compositing several images together and using mats, and it was all, cutting edge technology, but nobody ran screaming from the theatre, I'm sad to say.
Damn it. Kill my illusion. Thank you very much.
I know. So the next stop on the history train is 1925. We had a film called The Lost World. and then in 1926 there was Metropolis. So these were
I love Metropolis.
Stop motion at its most cutting edge. And also forced perspective in Metropolis. There's these are all things that are used constantly today. Stop motion, obviously, we've got our incredible Leica and Aardman who do, pretty stunning stuff.
And then for force perspective, if anyone
just think about Lord of the Rings.
Pretty much. That was exactly what I was going to say. Lord of the Rings is the most modern. I mean, yeah, we touched Lord of the Rings. I've got a segment on that one, so I'll get to that. We'll come back to force perspective when Lord of the Rings comes up.
I'd be glad to hear that. So we'll breeze past some of the other things that came out between these times. Obviously, we've got things like Ben-Hur in 1926 and
King Kong is obviously a big one, but that was also stop motion. And I think also, was that slightly animatronic? Or am I jumping ahead?
I don't think it was. If it was anything, it would have been a puppet, but it was probably all stop motion.
Okay.
But, so like I say, we can sort of breeze past a lot of this. People started to use blue screen or green screen, depending on what the talent is wearing. So you can't have, as I have found to my great detriment, filming men in green army fatigues on a green screen background does not necessarily work out.
No.
Just throwing that out there, I wasn't the one who decided to put it on green screen, but it did make things a lot harder for everyone working on it.
A lot of garbage mats.
Yeah. But sort of between sort of like 1935 and like 1940, 50, that's where we're seeing compositing is sort of coming out, where you can use a colored matte.
Another force perspective one was another one that was kind of shown was the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which you're going to have to forgive me. I don't know the year, but I want to say it was similar to the time of Metropolis and things. And it was also a good use of force perspective. And it's a bit more indie, but it was also not indie, but
1920.
Thank you very much. And I say you're good on the facts and the years, and the googling. But
I certainly am. I'm excellent at googling.
But that one really stood out to me as well. But Metropolis, oh god. Now here's an interesting fact about Metropolis. Here's an interesting fact about Metropolis. It is very difficult to find the full edit because it has been cut down so much. Somehow my brother has the actual full long version. I think he got it from a film tutor at Kansas University or something like that, but it is very difficult. There's like 15 minutes missing somewhere and things like that. But yes, Metropolis, I mean, oh my god, that one's a big one in lots of culture as well. Like you still see things influenced by it and whatnot. But yeah.
Also about stop motion, we are going to jump a little bit ahead to 1960, or 1963 in fact, because unfortunately there was this little thing happening 1930s and 40s, this world war that stopped people from being able to do a huge amount of innovation in film because they were too busy doing innovation in like warfare. Imagine that.
Minor detail,
the probably most notable thing around this time is going to be Jason and the Argonauts, from our great Ray Harryhausen. And I feel like you want to say, I feel like you've got something to say about him.
No, I just love Ray Harryhausen. Now I get some of his stuff mixed up. I think it's Jason and the Argonauts, but the skeleton scene, which I think is what you're going to talk about.
It is, exactly.
Oh my god. Oh, sorry. I love this. Yes,
it's really impressive.
And, he inspires me so much. Like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's iconic, and it gets borrowed by other, not necessarily like the shots themselves, but at least the setup and how it all plays out seems to get borrowed in other movies.
Because I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that scene is the first time that live action interacted with. Because yes, we had the stop motion with King Kong where she, the hand reached in and grabbed her, but then you could tell that was like a little puppet. Whereas this was, I mean, I'm still fascinated to this day, like how they got the sword. Obviously, they filmed the live action plate first and then did the stop motion
Yeah.
to make, but oh my god, and like the way they would kick the heads and they'd spin around and
It's
love it.
It's really iconic, and if you haven't seen it, at least Google go on YouTube. There will be a clip of it. Someone will have uploaded it somewhere, just of this the skeleton battle sequence, because it's astonishing.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, even that also, I think that's the one that has the Colossus in it as well, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Hang on,
So,
I'm just going to check.
And I know there's the or no, that might be Clash of the Titans. Clash of the Titans was the other big one, because I was just about to say the Medusa scene, but that was Clash of the Titans.
That is Clash of the Titans, yeah.
And because I was also going to say I love the owl, but that's Clash of the Titans, which little Easter egg in the kind of crappy modern Clash of the Titans, they kept Ulu or whatever, the owl, to look just like the one from the Ray Harryhausen films as a nod. But that was another one I was very inspired. So actually, yes, Clash of the Titans, I get that one and Jason and the Argonauts mixed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
1960.
There used to be a great, I'm really sorry, this is my last thing. I don't know if it's still around, but there was a great expo. I don't even think it exists anymore, but the London Film Museum that used to be at the County House. They used to have a massive Jason and the Argonauts and a Ray Harryhausen exhibition, but I don't even know if that exists anymore. But
I don't think it does. Last time I saw a film exhibition here, it was the little tiny James Bond exhibition that's by the Transport for London Museum.
Okay, so now I think that's probably gone. I think Shrek has now taken over or something. County House, they always swap things out.
You know, Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Sorry, moving on. Next one.
But also notably in 1963, that was the first ever Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. And that went to The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So that's 1963, so, we're a way away. Every year there is always a lovely compilation that somebody somewhere online does, where they put a clip of every single film that's won the Best Special or Visual Effects Award. They add a little clip every year to the end of it, so it's just steadily getting longer and longer. So you can see sort of how things have progressed. That's always cool to see.
That is very cool. It really is.
We are getting, in the 60s, we're getting to the part where we're starting to use computers to get things going. I think the first CG department in the world, I want to say, was in the University of Utah. And that was in 1966. There was a lot of... it's computer graphics, so it's not necessarily the 3D stuff that you would see nowadays.
Yes.
But some really pioneering stuff there, as you would see in that time.
Do you have any examples of like what films were made using that like groundbreaking technology at the time?
Westworld.
Oh, how funny.
1973's Westworld. Sorry, Future World.
Oh, Future World.
Sorry, no, wait.
Okay.
2D CGI was in Westworld, and the first use of 3D imagery was in Future World.
Okay.
So
and this was in 63 or 73?
73.
Oh, okay.
So it was actually University of Utah grad students who did this.
Oh, brilliant.
The 3D imagery is a computer-generated hand and a face that I think they actually show it just on a computer screen. So they're not trying to make you believe that it's real in the world, but they're trying to make you believe that it's a real thing that a computer could do, if you know what I mean.
See. Yes.
So it's still really, really impressive stuff. But yeah, it's Westworld and Future World, which is crazy that it's the one film and its sequel that end up being the first 2D and the first CG to 3D.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But yes, so that was students of the University of Utah.
Nice. Well, I have a confession. I didn't realize, because, obviously Westworld is being big right now on HBO and things. I didn't realize it was a remake.
Really?
No, I didn't.
Oh my god.
I know. I got a massive like pinch from the better half for that, and I get this all the time. She's like, and you call yourself a film? I'm like, don't start. I get that all the time. I'm like, do not start. No.
But it's funny because it's actually, if you think about it, it's exactly what would have been made if they'd had the technology in 1973. This is exactly what they would have wanted to make.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is everything that happens in Westworld, you're like, you've been waiting all this time to do this.
Yeah, pretty much. You're like, okay, technology finally caught up.
Exactly. So again, if we skip ahead, 1975, we see the teapot. The infamous teapot, which is one of the default models that comes with every 3D software. It is somehow somebody decided that this little item, this very humble, simple object that also is quite complex because it's got different.
I was going to say,
curves.
I know the answer to this.
Go on, go for it.
Well, no. The reason why the teapot was chosen was because it's to basically be able to do every form of geometry in the software.
Exactly.
So you have your planes, your angles, so it's somehow someone sat there and figured out that a teapot, you can get your sphere, your plane, your, custom shape, and somehow... Yeah.
Yeah, and it
don't
would
know if I explained that very well, but
no,
yes.
Absolutely. And it would actually later go on to be one of the icons of Pixar's RenderMan software. I think I don't know if it was on their logo for a while, but they definitely have teapot
oh yes.
teapots that they give out at conferences.
I would love a teapot. I want some teapot swag. So yes,
I have seen one that has it's a little wind-up teapot with little legs, and it walks across your desk.
I know.
But yeah, so
I wanted one.
It's kind of a weird little icon that we have in computer graphics. 1977.
I know this one.
Go for it, Shannon.
I think I'm going to feel really stupid if it's not. Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Da, 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 da. Sorry. This is, I think a lot of people, this was the film that got me inspired by two things. One, filmmaking in general, and two, how does it work and behind the scenes. So yes. Go ahead, Helen. You first.
That's cool. You're absolutely right. It's an enormously influential piece of media. Obviously, it won its Oscar. But also George Lucas created an entirely new company just because he needed someone to do the special effects for this movie. And that doesn't happen every day.
No.
So the company that he created, of course, was Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM, which you probably have heard us muttering about here and there on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely. They are brothers in arms. Yep, very strongly.
Still going strong, and now one of Disney's many pets. But but they do still continue to churn out excellent stuff. And
the interesting thing about Star Wars as well was it was very much a combination of the old with the new. So we had talked about stop motion. They did stop motion for the creatures, like the kind of in the second, I guess this was technically Empire Strikes Back, so sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But anyway, they used techniques of old and new. So you had, small scale models, but then they were like, well, we have to somehow build a rig. And it's funny because this is where we started to kind of get into that territory of some of this is special effects, some of this is visual effects.
Yeah, and there's so much technology involved. Exactly.
And actually, going to our previous episode of our podcast where we were talking about nonlinear editing systems and things, I actually have to thank George Lucas for the software that I am working on today, because he created, I'm really sorry the name is escaping me, but that's one of the things that came out of ILM and all these kind of sub groups, was the first kind of online, computer-based editing system, and that's why it's called nonlinear. But if you want to hear all about that, that's episode 3. So moving on. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But like late 70s is where we start seeing more films using CG. So you've got things like Alien, obviously. That was in 1979. And you said that Star Wars was your film that made you go, I want to do that. Alien is my film that made me go, I want to do that.
Oh, yay!
Alien, famously not a film that 11-year-olds should be watching.
Correct.
But there we go. I had the mega ultimate box set edition of DVDs that had all 4 movies, as they were at the point, and all of the makings of. And it was, I would just watch them on repeat. This is exactly what I wanted to do.
Tell me you know the trivia about the chest bursting scene.
Well, that they didn't tell him.
Yes!
They didn't tell anyone what was going to happen.
No.
And I just love that. So, like, that's exactly how you do that sort of scene.
It works.
It works, and it wasn't a cruel thing to do to people. It was just like jumping out at someone.
Yeah, like no one got physically harmed.
Like, it's not like they didn't know what the scene was. Like, they all read that script. They just didn't know exactly how that was going to go down. Yeah,
like, I think, is it Peter Scarif? Is that his name? The guy that's the captain, the actor that plays the captain. The guy with the beard.
Oh,
I don't know. His reaction's the best. Where, like, he's just like, oh, God.
It's Tom Skerritt. Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, Tom Skerritt. My eye is always drawn to Tom Skerritt. Like, his reaction is the best. Where, I mean, all of them, like, it's great. And you do that. And it's funny, going back to Star Wars, they did the same for Solo when the creature in, like, the Kessel Run or whatever, they basically didn't tell them and they turned a bright light on and it startled them. And so, yeah, like Helena said, there is some stories where you get some dodgy, stuff. But this one, it worked. And
absolutely.
God bless Ridley Scott. God bless Ridley Scott. Yes, like, well done.
Next milestone is the very first all-digital CG image. This is in 1982. Yes. And this is for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, which is, again, another iconic movie. Yeah, really. Another really iconic movie. Not necessarily for the CG, but for all of its memeability, I think. Oh. But yeah, so that's the next milestone, is 1982. All right,
I'm 2 years away from being born, so okay.
I'm still 8 away. Cool.
Such a baby. What's the next one?
The next thing. So 1983, we got Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Which was Oscar nominated somehow.
How funny.
Yeah, so this is actually done by a company of ex-ILM people. So ILM's now been around long enough for people to have worked there, made a name for themselves, and left to form their own companies.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so Ghostbusters, again, another ridiculously iconic film. I've got another hot take, which is that the film itself, I don't think is actually that good.
Yeah,
I don't think the actual film, like I understand that it is cult-worthy, it absolutely is, but so is The Room.
Well, yeah.
Like, just because something is cult-worthy doesn't mean it's necessarily a good movie. And I think if it had been made today with that quality of script, people would have trashed it. And I just don't think the script is that good. And I don't think the performance is that good. And I'm going to get so much hate for this. Every person loves this movie.
It's not The Room bad, but I know.
I was just trying to say.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Mark. Anyway,
exactly.
Sorry.
We also have, in 1985, the first CG character. Who is it?
Which is, oh God. Okay.
You know this.
1985. Is it it's the T-1000, isn't it?
No.
Or it's Pixar?
Nope. 1985. Pixar's 1990s. And Terminator's 1991.
Oh my God, I suck at life. Oh, fuck.
When I say it, you'll kick yourself.
I am. Go for it.
It is The Stained Glass Knight from Young
I
Sherlock
knew
Holmes.
this. Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. Damn it.
So this is a CG character who is composited onto a live-action background. So way back in 1963, we had the stop-motion guys that were interacting with live action, and now we have CG guys interacting with live action. So that's just a small jump of 23 years.
Which is not a lot if you think it in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly, and it's actually still I think it still holds up somewhat.
I've seen this clip. I remember seeing it when I was a kid because it's a TV show. Young Sherlock Holmes.
No, it's a film.
Was it okay, maybe there was a very brief. Oh, I'm thinking Young Indiana Jones. Sorry, never mind. God, I'm really sucking at life tonight. Yes, I remember this, and yeah, I mean, there are some visual effects that they still hold up that you don't go, look at that. But yeah, I would agree with that.
I think there's a lot of visual effects that still hold up because they were used exactly as much as they needed to be. I think you find the films that don't hold up with visual effects in them are ones where they've overused it or they've overstretched themselves. I feel like there's being pioneering, absolutely, but then there's just using CG where you just don't need to.
Yeah, it's just this definitely gets into kind of the later films where now it's like
absolutely,
it's kind of like the line. It's like that line from Jurassic Park, which I know we're getting very close to. It's not a matter of if we could; it's a matter of if we should.
Yes, exactly. And I think when we get a little bit more into your section, I have some things to say about some recent movies that I'm hoping that you will be bringing up. So, 1986. Pixar is founded. Now, this isn't strictly a visual effects company. They don't necessarily produce films that you would consider a visual effects movie because it's all fully animated stuff. But what they do produce is software. And we have RenderMan, which we mentioned earlier with the teapot. This is still, I would say, industry standard. Mm-hmm. And it is... They are prolific. The stuff that they produce a lot of stuff that pretty much everyone else in the industry uses. Pixar have their own division of software support for other companies. So they are, whilst they are making that, they're making their Incredibles 2s and their Cocos and Toy Story 3's round the corner. They're also supporting every other company that produces visual effects with their RenderMan software, and it is good stuff.
And that's pretty impressive to not only be the creative side, but then also the behind-the-scenes technical side. Yeah,
there are some companies out there like ILM, like Pixar, who are not only producing great content, but also great technology. Here's a surprisingly recent one. Howard the actual duck, which was in 1986. It was the first time we had digital wires removed. Now, wouldn't you think that would have been earlier?
Because that makes me wonder, because that
just makes you go, oh my god, they were actually just throwing people against walls. How many injuries were there?
No, I'm sorry. I guess I was thinking puppets and things, because Howard the Duck being a puppet.
Yeah, but
so that's what I'm
just thinking. If that's
removal.
The first time they're doing wire removal, what have they been doing for stunts? People have just been dying.
That's why Buster Keaton was such a legend.
Yeah, that's true.
Because, oh my god.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's I just think this is surprisingly recent.
Yes,
for 1986.
Absolutely. It's literally in my lifetime. And I'm not that old, damn it.
We've gotten there.
Yes.
We also, in the end of the 80s, so 1988, I think it was, we got Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I love this movie.
this one really got me as a kid, because obviously it's Disney and Looney Tunes. There's an interesting fact for you, both are in there. But the scene that scared me was when the Christopher Lloyd character went from live action to like cartoon, and he was like flat and walking around, and but how I remember sitting there as a kid wondering how they got this live action dude with this cartoon character, because obviously I could tell they didn't belong in the same world together, and how again they seamlessly interacted. And that's me at like 5 years old, like, wow, how did they do it? So yeah, I'm really happy to see Who Framed Roger Rabbit is on this list, because
I love this movie. Honestly, it's such a scary movie, and it should not have been shown to kids.
No,
but here we go, it's great.
And it's what started a whole generation of people who now go frame by frame to see if they can see naughty bits.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica Rabbit.
Yep. We also, 1988, gave us Willow. Is this one you've seen?
No, actually, I am very ashamed to say. I should, but no, I have not seen Willow.
This is another one where the effect is kind of iconic, and you can definitely see it on YouTube. But it's written down as the first digital morph. So we've got a character that turns from like a goat into an ostrich, and then into like a tiger, and then into her. It's not like feature for feature, so you don't see like the ostrich eyes turn into tiger eyes or anything like that. But it's the first time that we see that kind of effect on screen.
Oh, cool.
Next exciting thing, and I say exciting and also slightly bittersweet, Rhythm and Hues also appeared at the end of the 80s. They were doing, so let me just quickly run through some of the things that these guys worked on, and it tells you so much about them. Jetsons the movie, Hocus Pocus.
Oh, I love Hocus Pocus.
Waterworld, Batman Forever, Babe, Pig in the City.
Okay.
X-Men.
I mean, to be fair, mouth augmentations and things, that was a thing. So
yeah, they did Cats and Dogs. They did Scooby-Doo, Stuart Little.
So they definitely were known for the animals.
Absolutely. I actually, at university, I did my final year project, my sort of thesis was about, it's actually very timely considering the world we're living in right now this second, and it was a entire paper about transforming 2D animated characters into 3D animated characters, and what features to keep, what features you could get away with changing and getting rid of. I did a load of work on silhouettes and facial recognition, and I just went into all sorts of different weird little things, and I made a 3D model of Ursula from The Little Mermaid, and
brilliant! I would love to see this.
Graduated with a degree. But I had
I made a Joan of Arc. Yours sounds like 10 times better than mine.
Everyone did Joan of Arc.
I had to do a superhero. I had to model a superhero, and then I was just like, okay, I'm going to do Joan of Arc. One, because then I could cheat, and I didn't have to do the muscles, because then I was like, oh, she's wearing chainmail.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Rhythm and Hues came in the end of the 80s, and they did an awful lot of those animated talking animal type movies. And it's fun to see the kind of niches that people fall into.
Yes, because we had touched on this in a previous episode, that definitely different companies and things have their strengths. So
absolutely,
yes, they were the kind of the creature house and the animal house for a while.
Exactly. Here's another sort of maybe not surprisingly recent, but 1990 for Die Hard 2, it was the first digital matte painting.
Oh, okay.
And obviously we had matte paintings back in 1902, but I'm surprised that it's taken until 1990 to get the first full digital matte painting.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah, because I would have, that's the thing, because again, even us in the industry as of this moment, a lot of the things, that we discussed in our pipeline episode and things, we're talking about things that some things are not even like 10 years old. So that's quite fascinating.
Exactly.
Obviously that's technically 20, but that's what I'm saying. They're still very recent in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Next, we're finally hitting 1991 and one of the best movies ever made, Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Woo!
Which obviously had the iconic T-1000, which is probably obviously there have been CG, there was CG work between 1985 and 1991, but this is probably the next significant digital character that we see.
It really took it to another level, a whole another level, and
it still looks good today. Like I say, it holds up. I say.
Yes, very much so. Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Another fun thing that happened during this time, where were we? 1920s, we had stop motion starting up.
Yes.
We moved to Go Motion, which is something that Phil Tippett from iconic Tippett Studios created for Dragon Slayer, and we obviously see that in Jurassic Park in 1993, which is my next big milestone.
Yes. This is my other one that I geek out
a
lot about.
Yep.
This is my like companion to Star Wars is the Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Because a little tidbit, I might be stealing a little bit of Helen's thunder. I apologize.
Go for it.
The dinosaurs were originally going to be stop motion.
Yes, they were.
And they had all these film tests and things like that, and then somebody, I believe it was ILM, said, actually, come here, Stephen, we want to show you something.
Yeah, we've just been testing this thing out. We don't know if it'll work, but here's this.
But here we're going to show a walk cycle of a Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah.
And it was just like, there it is. And the nice thing is, though, Phil Tippett, they still used models, they still used that stop motion or Go Motion to help do kind of the walk cycles and things, and a little bit of the pre-visualization, I believe,
they did,
of the scenes and whatnot. So they didn't go, but that's why actually the line when they say, what do you think? And he says, I think we're out of a job. Oh, don't you mean extinct? Was actually the stop motion, it was actually said behind the scenes that the stop motion animators said it to the computer animators.
Yep.
And they kept it and they actually put it in the film as a little nod.
Yep.
But it just, and you want to talk about a film that holds up.
Yes, absolutely. And this is another one of those cases where I say less is more, right? Because those dinosaurs, if you break it down, again, this is another one of those ones where I get addicted to behind the scenes material. Those dinosaurs have probably got about 11 bones in their entire body.
Yeah.
We are building characters right now with the entire 206 bone skeleton of a human. And we don't need, obviously we do because we know we've got things to do with it, but they were able to create those dinosaurs with 11 bones.
Yeah.
And we are doing full skeletons right now.
I also think, another little quick trivia bit, I think Jurassic Park was also the first film to have a facial replacement in it.
Was it now?
Could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I remember watching the behind the scenes, and when Lex, the blonde girl, falls through the ceiling and the raptor jumps up, basically the stunt double looked at the camera. And to obviously spot the person to pull her up. And they just then somehow took a freeze frame of the actress and pasted it on. I challenge you to look at it and tell me if you can tell. But yes, and I want to say it's one of the first facial replacements because I had to, because the take was perfect and things like that.
Yeah.
But yes. So yes, it was. I could be wrong. People can attack me in the comments section, but I want to say it was one of the first facial replacements used in a film as well.
Yeah. I actually forgot to mention one of my favorite films, which was in 1992, which is Death Becomes Her.
Oh, yes.
So the end of this movie has these two essentially immortal women fighting, and Meryl Streep plays one of them, and she's had her head twisted 180. So she's walking around with her head on backwards, basically, and it's a completely insane movie, and it's wonderful, and
it's very much a Helen film.
it's so good, but it's not necessarily a huge landmark, but it was a use of CG. I think they were going for like they were doing like photorealistic skin, so that you couldn't tell that it wasn't just like a prosthetic or an actual. They actually killed Meryl Streep. But yeah, it's just some really, really impressive stuff, and I just love Death Becomes Her.
Nice.
So 1994, it's time for The Flintstones, The Mask, the wildebeest scene from The Lion King.
Yes, which
True
yes,
Lies.
the use of like 2.5D. Yes,
Exactly. So we are getting into the point where people are realizing what it is they can do with these softwares, and they're really pushing the boundaries with them. We've also got CG stunt doubles in Batman Forever, which I believe was another one of those Rhythm and Hughes ones.
I'd say that's a Rhythm and Hughes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they necessarily did that work, because as we've said before, several companies can work on the same film at once.
Of course.
But yeah, so we've got CG stunt doubles. Like, this is 1995. We've got CG like capes and hair, and we're seeing a lot more simulation. Babe got an Academy Award for special effects.
Nice.
Babe Pig in the talking pig. It got an award for its special effects. That's mouth flaps on a pig.
That'll do, pig.
Exactly. Crazy. 1999.
Woo, we're getting close to the end of your bit.
We are so close, and it's got two very important movies in it.
Yes.
One is Star Wars Episode 1.
Yes.
Which was a 2,000 shot film, which even now that's a big show.
Yes.
Like most visual effects films, if you exclude things like Infinity War and your current gen stuff where they're all just every character's flipping CG.
Yes.
But generally you're seeing maybe 500 to 1,200 shots.
Yes.
As a sort of an average, but 2,000 is enormous.
Yes. And do you know who that was?
ILM.
No, sorry, not the company. The character.
Oh, sorry. Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, no, of course it was ILM. I apologize. Yes, it was Jar Jar Binks. But, yes, because actually, Ahmed Best, which, bless him, got so much crap after this film.
Yeah, bless.
Who was the actor that played him, actually was on set. He was in costume, everything. And I actually just watched this the other day, the behind the scenes of The Phantom Menace. And it was the same thing like Jurassic Park, where they were like, actually, George, come here, and they had a side-by-side of the performance.
Yep. And
the subtleties they were able to do, but it kind of made the budget balloon, because they were like, oh god, okay, now we have this main character who they were hoping was going to be like one of the pivotal characters of that prequel trilogy.
Yep.
Which not so much.
Which, I mean, if you go by the fan theories that he's actually a Sith Lord.
A Sith Lord. I love it. Those are some of my favorite.
I mean, Ben,
you're
not wrong. He was a pivotal character.
But so yeah, that's where they were just like, oh, okay, we're gonna have to make a full CG character and do all this replacements and things like that. So yes, exactly.
1999 also saw The Matrix.
I was going to say, gotta be The Matrix as well.
Which, obviously, all absolutely excellent, except for that one part with lots of Agent Smiths, where there's
actually, that's the second one, and that's in mine.
Cool, okay, then in that case, delete me. because I've got complaints about that.
Yeah, we could talk about that because that's the
absolutely.
Matrix Reloaded. Yep.
But okay, in that case, I'm going to tell you what I think should be the second most important film in this year, and that's The Mummy. The Mummy is one of the best films that's ever been made. It is unapologetically hammy. It does not care. The visual effects are mwah.
Just to clarify,
talking
we're
the
talking
Brendan
about
Fraser
the Brendan
movie.
Fraser. Okay.
There's no crossed wires here. I'm talking about 1999's Brendan Fraser epic, The Mummy. It is honestly, it's one of my favourite films of all time. When I say Alien got me into this, The Mummy got me into this. It's a good movie. The visual effects are all absolutely excellent.
Yes, and the original one, yes. We will, let's not talk about the Scorpion King and the second one.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking first Mummy. That is...
I know.
I am going to also bring up that there is a fight with Rick and the mummies at the end of this movie, which is a direct callback to the skeletons from Jason and the Argonauts. So how's that for
absolutely.
A callback?
Oh yeah, and they had to, but yeah, the degeneration or the opposite, the regeneration of the mummy.
Oh, it was so good.
Brendan
And
Fraser,
there's
it was good.
The little
yes.
scarab that crawls out of his chest and it goes up his neck, and then he eats it, and it's really good. And then he turns into a sand monster. Oh, it's good. It's a good movie. It's well made. Everything about it is exceptional. I can recite it word for word. I can recite all the special features word for word. It is a good movie, and you cannot edit any of that out because I believe in it.
I won't.
I'm just going to yell about The Mummy for the next 20 minutes. I will yell about The Mummy. I will yell about Venom. So it's your turn.
So now we have now hit the millennium.
I've done 80 years. You can do 20.
Yes, ma'am. So my first one, actually, this one was really quite surprised me. And this is in 2000. And it was actually for the film Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And basically, they filmed the film and it was this lovely green. And they were like, that we want it to be a hot, summery, bleak. It's like the 1930s Dust Bowl kind of Depression era. So this was the first film that had a digital color grade. Which
that's
basically
surprisingly recent as well.
Exactly. And when I say, yes, of course, things have been color graded in the past, but what makes this different by being a digital color grade was they literally scanned the entire film into the computer, and then that's where they messed with all the colors and things like that. So I was very surprised by that. That was the first film to be color graded.
Yep.
And now it is very much a common practice in everything. Like we kind of spoke in our pipeline episode and ththings, imaging or grading or whatever the departments are called. They are your friend because we have to set up version
Color
zeros
science.
Now to, oh man, you want to talk about a degree. Whew.
Yep.
Mad props to all our color science people out there. You're awesome. So next we are moving on to 2000, where our friends at ILM, for the film The Perfect Storm, they needed to have massive storms and waves and things like that. So they actually did the first weather simulation, the first digital weather simulation. Yep. So you could see those wide shots
I don't know.
The ships.
I might have to jump in because I think we had Twister in the 80s. Does that count?
Twister was the 90s. It was 1994.
Oh my god, to me that was like 1989. I am really bad at remembering that one.
Yeah, I just remember because, again, being a military kid, I could tell you almost everything year for year because I moved every year. But
excellent, cool.
Yeah, the thing with Twister though, it wasn't massive liquid simulations.
That's true. I was just thinking about weather. My bad.
Yes, no, it's all good. No, all good. But because of this perfect storm weather simulation, then that opened the doors up for like 2004's, what was it called? Day After Tomorrow and The Life of Pi and things like that. And so now, I mean, God. So the Pirates of the Caribbean films wouldn't be what they were if it wasn't for this. So hats off to ILM for 2000's A Perfect Storm. So next we are moving on to The Lord of the Rings. This is what we kind of touched on and everything. And this was actually from our friends in Weta. And they created the first crowd simulation. Now, actually, the technology itself was developed way back in 1996. This is how long Lord of the Rings was in pre-production. They literally were making this software in 1996.
Yeah.
Where the first Lord of the Rings, I don't think, came out till what? 2001-ish?
Ooh, yeah.
I wish my friend Hannah would know this. But
2003?
I do remember 2003 was definitely one of those years. It definitely was like my senior year of high school. But
it was 2001.
Okay,
That's
great.
crazy.
So 2001.
Because I have very, 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 very strong memories of high school and meeting somebody for the first time, and she just would not stop talking about Lord of the Rings, and we went to the cinema and we saw the trailer for it, and she was freaking out. I'd never heard of it. And she was absolutely flipping out about this movie coming out.
Yep.
And
so that's how long it was in pre-production. So yes, Weta created the first crowd simulations, and then that opened up the door for, again, things like our Game of Thrones. World War Z was another one that did lots of crowd simulations and things. And to the point now, it's its own department.
Yeah.
We now have crowd departments. We've covered this in the Pipeline episode if you'd like to hear more about that. But yes, it's now its own department. Yep. Oh, thank you. She's good at this.
I can remember everything except for the year that Twister came out. I'm really sorry, but I've just looked it up and it's 1996.
Is it 96? Okay, I knew. Okay, 1996. But I remember all the meteorologists, like Andy Wallace was the name I remembered, that their actual voices were in the background. So, okay, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, 1996. Okay, I was still in Oklahoma at the time, but yeah. Okay, moving on. So, here's one that shows how a, quote, like, universally panned film can still bring on new revolutions. And I am talking about Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
Yes.
And it actually was the first film that started our lovely motion capture, which of course nowadays if you hear motion capture, the first thing that pops into your head is Gollum from Lord of the Rings, which actually was just that year next. So basically, because of Final Fantasy Spirits was in motion capture and recording a full digital character, was then literally implemented the next year into the second Lord of the Rings film.
And
the Two Towers.
I'm going to go for another hot take. I'm full of them tonight.
Go for it.
Spirits Within is a good movie. If you ignore the Uncanny Valley stuff, it's creepy to look at. But this is what I was saying about Ghostbusters, right? The quality of the script, the quality of the performances, I think is better than people give it credit for because of how creepy the faces are. Yeah.
Yes. And that's actually what a lot of my kind of things for this last kind of 20 some odd years or 10, 15 years, it's interesting that some of the things that you're like, but it opened up the doors. So yes, Final Fantasy Spirit Within did the motion capture and things like that. Kind of dovetailing into that, we have the company Image Metrics, and they created the facial capture for the second Matrix film. So that scene that Helen was speaking about earlier, where we had all the different Agent Smiths and things, this is where, and they later did it for the video game LA Noire, but they basically had, they still do it. No, they actually still do it for, I know it sounds ridiculous. They still use this technology now to do action figures and things.
I'm really sorry, but the quality is exactly the same between that movie and that game that you've just mentioned.
Oh yeah, and that's at least quite 8 years apart.
Yeah, and the quality is exactly the same. So is that a good game or a bad movie? That scene is fine with all the Agent Smiths. It's fine until he starts doing that part where he runs around the mall and he's got his stick plonked into the floor and he's doing his run, and it's awful. It's the worst digi double I've ever seen.
Terrible.
And I'm including the Harry Potter one where he gets picked up by the troll and gets thrown around. I'm including that digi double of Daniel Radcliffe at 11 years old, and I would say that is a better digi double than Neo.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, the image metrics basically would take all these cameras and would basically take images. I mean, they would even get the inside of the person's mouth, and and they still use this technique to this day for texture and things for assets and whatnot. But that's how, and they could be able to basically then paste that on a 3D model and things.
Yep.
But so yes, that was what was in the second Matrix film. Again, we talked about Uncanny Valley. That would also now lead us into a very big Uncanny Valley, and that is Polar Express.
Oof,
But
that is a movie.
Polar Express, where we had Tom Hanks play 5 different characters, it was the first film to have facial markers.
Huh.
So, yes, it was. So that's where they started getting. They just still couldn't quite get the eyes right.
And they still
that was
can't
the first
to this
film.
day.
But that was the first film to use facial markers in their motion capture. So kind of getting out of the world of motion capture, because that's really what's a lot prominent. We're kind of now going back to set. So 2004's Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow was actually the first film to make a full digital world. Full CG world. And it actually, they shot the film twice. So they would shoot all the actors on the green screen and everything, and then they would film with the completely digital backgrounds and things. And actually, this film was funded by a 1994 made trailer to get the funding. So that's how long it took. It took them 10 years to get this film made.
It's
actually
a pretty good movie.
I love it, and it also
My dad loves it.
Another thing. It's not quite a visual effects revolution, but they were able to resurrect Laurence Olivier to be almost like this Wizard of Oz, and it is done quite well. Unlike Tarkin in Rogue One, I'm sorry, come at me. I think some other digi-doubles are better. I'm looking at you, Arnie and Rachel, but Tarkin was just a bit. But the thing is, kind of as we were discussing earlier, the less is more. The Laurence Olivier worked out quite well. I actually really enjoy Sky Captain. It was one of the films I actually had to kind of write or watch and take notes on before I started my visual effect degree here in London in 2010, and I actually really enjoyed it. Well, I mean, I loved all the Easter eggs too, but anyway, that's a whole nother rant another time. But yes, so 2004's Sky Captain was the first one to have a complete digital backlot. Moving on, we are now into the year 2005, and Pirates of the Caribbean had come out before, but when they had the character of Davy Jones,
yes. Love this movie, love this character, love this everything.
This film is what really changed. Again, we wouldn't have our Thanos and things like that today if it wasn't for this film. Then the reason why is because we had what they called EMOCAP. IMOCAP, which basically is on-set motion capture. And that's where now you have famously see the actors in the checkered shirts and hats and the facial markers and everything like that, but they're on set. They're not on this digital playground, basically. So they basically, instead, they brought them on location. And Pirates of the Caribbean, the second one.
Pirates of the Caribbean, the second one. That's what we're calling it from now on.
Title?
I think it's Dead Man's Chest.
No. Yes, it's Dead Man's Chest. I'm sorry.
But no, from now on, we're just going to call it Pirates of the Caribbean, the second one.
Oh, it's late. Be nice. So yes, that's what started that. And again, that has now, because of that, has now become practice. And that's where you can see now a lot of the before and after shots. Pretty much for any character. Again, Thanos is a big one.
You've got the guys on set. You've got a little camera, head-mounted camera pointed at their faces. They're acting. They're interacting with the people on set. It's easier for the actors to be able to interact with someone. It's easier for the guys giving the performance as the characters to have somebody to interact with, because otherwise they're just like Benedict Cumberbatch for some reason on a green screen pretending to be a dragon. Don't know why that was a thing that decided to happen. But you just end up with people on green.
He's so good at it, though.
You just end up with people on green screens pretending to do things, and no one's got their sight lines quite right, and everyone's looking at straight like the wrong place, and just having people on set is such a underrated thing.
Yes, and it really helps the actors. And again, you just want that collaboration. And actually, it's funny that you mention cameras and things showing at the face, because actually that was then Avatar was our next one. So 2006 Avatar.
2006?
That one really...
I thought it was 2009.
Well, no, but that's when the technology started.
Oh, right, okay.
So I guess it's kind of this gap year. So because my next one is it jumps a bit. So but now we're talking about Avatar. Now, Avatar did a couple things here. So yes, they really revolutionized the facial capture, and now this is the standard practice that you see, where you have this tiny little camera with a light, and that's how they were finally able to get the subtleties in the eyes and the performance of the actors and things. Again, say what you will about the story of Avatar, the technology is quite something, and also
the visual effects
really
hold up on that movie.
Yes, and it's really kind of what started what now is starting to be used as virtual production. Basically, oh my god, the list goes on. They were able in real time to capture the motion capture on live stages, so they were able to make the motion capture area massive. Like, usually in traditional motion capture, it's, I think, about a 9 to 12 camera setup, and it's like a 5 foot by 5 foot square.
Yeah.
And that's all you've got to track. With Avatar, they were able to open that up, and they would be able to do these scenes where they were running and bouncing over things, and because of that has also revolutionized gaming. A lot of things like The Last of Us and other things like that nowadays. Uncharted is another one. You're able to capture these performances and these little nuances because of Avatar and their virtual production.
Yep.
So that was the first thing. They opened the stage up to be massive so that you could have all this more room. The other thing is they started with these digital cameras that you could now, the director could literally hold like an iPad looking thing, and he could look and see what the camera would see, and he could see the set and then what the characters kind of looked like. They weren't obviously fully CG rendered and anything like that, but he could show the actors, okay, this is kind of what you're looking at. So you're not looking at a box with squares. This is kind of what Pandora
this is
going to look like.
Your forest that you're looking at or whatever.
Next, we have almost the opposite, and it is 2013's Gravity, or maybe 2014.
13,
no, sorry.
It won the Oscar in 13, right?
Yes, so 2012, 2013, yes, it definitely won the 2013 Oscar
2013.
For Gravity. It was the first film that they pre-visualized the entire film. It was the first film that was ever completely pre-visualized. And also what it did was it had the first real world lighting applied to the actor. So even though the suits were all digital rendering, they were able to, basically, it was the opposite. They brought the set to the actors. Instead of bringing the actors to the set in the CG world, they brought the CG world to set. Yep. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. The other way around. So they were able to capture, because that's another thing that was really letting a lot of visual effects down, and it's very difficult. It's such a subtle thing, but if you get it wrong, it doesn't work, is lighting.
Yeah.
So Alfonso Cuarón came up with this idea with, obviously, Framestore was the main studio that worked on it. I think it was the only studio that worked on it. And they were able to build these massive light rigs where you could have the scene projected on set, and you would get the reflections and the lights on Sandra Bullock and things like that. And they also created a remote rig of the camera, which was quite dangerous. Apparently, that's kind of like the rumor and things like that they were going to go see if they asked Sandy if they wanted to test it. She was like, nope, let's do it. And then luckily it malfunctioned after they did all their filming. Again, that's a little bit of an urban story, and I might have some of my facts mixed around, but yeah, it is quite something. And yeah, and also, so that was used later for Passengers as well. Yep. They used that same idea and that same technology. So when Chris Pratt is outside blocking the thing, it was the same concept, literally just 2 years later. And same for Solo. That's how they now then did all the lighting for the Millennium Falcon. Everything in that's not digitally replaced, that was on set. So when they go to light speed the first time, those reactions from the actor are genuine. So that it's quite interesting that we kind of keep bouncing back and forth from going on set to offset to on set. And yeah, so basically building this massive light box to fit proper real world light in it. Finally wrapping it up, we're going into one very near and dear to our hearts is 2016's The Jungle Book, where it was a massive undertaking because it was one human actor and everything else was completely created digitally. I mean, from down to the leaf.
And I still have arguments with my mother about this.
Do you?
To this day, she swears that there is real jungle there. There is not.
I want to. Again, this is completely speculation. I don't know this from an inside point of view. I want to say they tried, but I know there was on set. The same thing, kind of the same principle that Gravity did. There was on set lighting and things. So like when Mowgli's running away from the not wildebeests, water buffalo. What was it? Yeah, water buffaloes. That lighting was there, and so people had like a thing. So there was some on-set techniques, but yes, it literally was Neil Sethi. That was it. It was just him on there, and but yeah, they were able to use some of that technology from Avatar and Gravity and apply that into it, so he could kind of see what he was looking at. But it was also very simple sets as well. So like when he's walking beside Baloo, it literally was just this revolving blue screen circle, and they just kept walking, and they were able to. So even they went back to some simple things as well. So that's the thing. Sometimes you don't need to have always the most complex, massive visual effect things to get the effect you need. Exactly. And I think kind of in wrapping this, it's all about not if you could, it's if you should kind of thing, and knowing that balance of when to go very extravagant and when to not.
Yeah. Quick shout out to spherevfx.com, which is where I got my full timeline. Sometimes when someone does the work for you of just putting this all in order, it's just the most wonderful thing. So just shout out to that website, spherevfx.com, for having that all ready for me.
But yes, thank you. If you like this, please hit the like and subscribe. And where can they find us, Helen?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter @PendingFinal. On Facebook is @PendingFinal, and on Instagram, the odd one out is @PendingFinalPodcast.
So thank you very much, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.